right, everyone, welcome into episode 143 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. This is the only American and Brazilian sports podcast where we cover sports on both continents. And Gus, the chill is in the air. I actually walked outside this evening. It wasn't completely humid. It felt nice. It's going to be in the 50s at some point this week. You know what that means, Gus. Football is truly back. It is so back, and it's exactly what the United States needs here. I'm Nick, live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's Gus in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. We have made it through the football offseason.
Oh, hey Nick, how's it going? Yeah, in Brazil it was funny. Last week I was in sweaters, cold, and today I'm in shorts. So I
By
guess
cold, do you
all
mean like fifth? By cold, do you mean like 60?
yes, I know. You can mock me. You can mock me. It's not as cold, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm
If cold was 60, that'd be amazing. It would be literally so good.
Yeah, but I want to start the pod, with a memory from last year, literally a year ago. That was a moment that I'll never forget in my broadcast career. A moment that I think you even remember, Nick. I mean, August 19, 2023, in the city of Penápolis, the
Oh, yes.
Penápolis miracle happened, and I want to remember this moment because I mean nothing I think in my broadcasting life I lived that, and that's probably one of the top 10 moments. I don't want to brag,
I
but
mean, and you have to set up the moment, Gus, because leading up to this moment, I mean, the roller coaster of emotions about the 10 minutes before this moment
oh
was
yeah,
unreal.
yeah, like just to give a little context for the people watching it. So Rio Branco, the team that today I'm the PR, and I work in the communications department. Yeah, last week I was a broadcaster for a radio station in Americana that covered Rio Branco. So Rio Branco was in a big match. The final game of the group stage of the third round of the Paulista under 23. And Rio Branco needed a draw. Needed a draw to advance to the quarterfinals. And the draw was happening up until the 49 the 94th minute of the second half. And then Penapolense scored, and then there was a whole brawl and fighting. Rio Branco got two players expelled, red card. So Rio Branco was down, and in the 80th minute, another player was ejected. So Rio Branco was down 3 men, down 1-0 on the road, needed to score a goal to advance to the quarterfinals. And then this happened.
Quem sabe agora, torcedor rio-branquense, pra ser sofrido demais, tinha que ser sofrido. Denilson, de perna esquerda, vai fazer a cobrança de falta, tá no seu pé, Denilson. Correu, bateu, desviou na barreira. E aí o pessoal pediu pênalti, mas o juiz não deu. Ainda a bola tá na área. Kawari, tocou no meio. O chute! O chute! O chute! O chute é gol! Rodrigues! Gol do Rio Branco! O milagre! O milagre! O milagre! O milagre de Penápolis! Gol dele! Luiz! Camisa número 16! Bola na área! Ele chegou desviando pro fundo do gol! Aos 59 minutos do segundo tempo, o Rio Branco empata o jogo no gol mais emocionante que eu narrei na minha vida. Obrigado, Rio Branco! Obrigado, Rio Branco! Você
Thank you, Rio Branco.
Você tem 110 anos! Você é muita história! O Rio Branco é grande demais!
That's the part I like the most. That's the part I like the most.
And the dude running in from the side is celebrating and just running back out cracks me up every single time I see that clip.
Oh yeah, he was our board operator. He was in the auxiliary studio. He ran to celebrate, and that's the part I like the most. Where I say, Rio Branco is a big club. Rio Branco is a gigantic club. That's what I said right now.
O Rio Branco é gigante demais!
And that's one of the things that fans still comes to me and call up, you know, you represent me. You were me. You know, that's the part I say. You said it right. Rio Branco is a big club. Rio Branco is a gigantic club. And fans come up to me even today and say, you did great. I love this call. This was one of the best calls I've ever heard in Rio Branco history. And I mean, Rio Branco has a 111-year-old history with
Mhm.
so many good broadcasters that had so many great moments. And I guess I made one of those moments that fans
Like
will
it
always
reminds me of the
remember.
Auburn 2013 with Iron Ball,
Oh
or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. Like, and that was like to advance to the semis, if I remember correctly, right? Because that was the
No, the
quarterfinal
quarterfinals,
round.
quarterfinals, quarterfinals,
Yeah, because you
quarterfinals.
guys had had the previous miracle at Colorado Calles to come back
Yes,
one
yes,
nil and to score two in the second half, and also in
yeah.
between that, the goal that Pennapolice scored. I mean, there was a brawl, and you guys
Yeah,
had
yeah,
a guy sent off. And it's just
yeah.
the fact that y'all were down to 10 men and had one
No,
shot
no, we're down.
basically.
We're down actually 3 men because it was during the game there was a one red card, and then there were two guys that were red carded because of the fight. So Rebecca was down 3 men, needed to score a goal, but then because of this brawl, the referee gave 4 extra minutes. That's what Rio Branco needed to score anyway. So ended up
So
working. With,
I'm curious, what happened to that other team in the last year? That's because I
oh,
can only imagine how devastating that would have been.
Yeah, it was funny that then Penapolense ended up staying in the same division of Rio Branco because if you remember, the teams that did not get promoted to A3 in 2013, in 2023, but they were in the final 14 teams in the quarterfinals. They in it went to the third round. Ended up going to this new division, the A4, the Rio Branco played this year. And then Penapolense literally played Rio Branco on their opening match this year. Ended up beating them again. No, not again, but we ended up beating them 1-0. And they had a very, very like a very disappointing season. Like they were one of the highest payrolls in the tournament. They were with so many expectations, like experienced coach, and then they ended up falling apart. They did not get relegated, but they didn't even made the playoffs. So they had a really disappointing season this year. And a lot of people say that because of the disappointment of that elimination was so bad that set up the mood this year. And even the guy who invests in the club might leave. So there's a lot of uncertainty in Penapolis for Penapolis. And I feel bad for them, but it's soccer, and one goal changes everything. And Rio Branco ended up scoring and advancing. Of course, then was eliminated in the quarterfinals against Taquaritinga, but then kind of revenged that this year, eliminating literally the same team in the same stage, the Taquaritinga in the quarterfinals. And then I kind of, now moving to this year, because unfortunately, Rio Branco season came to an end on Saturday. Even though Rio Branco did not play, we had to pray and hope for Red Bull Bragantino second team at least draw or even win Capivariano. And that was happening up until the 89 minutes, and then Capivariano scored.
Mhm.
I was there broadcasting for this YouTube channel, Gus Nod. I didn't know what to react. I called the
Yeah,
goal.
you just had like goal, and that was it.
Goal.
I've never seen you say goal so just downtrodden.
No, it
By the way,
was down. Like I had to keep professional, but like I was like, Fubby, like like no. But I
yeah,
am, but deep down, and people in the Rebrock organization and myself knows, like it wasn't this match. It was, ended up being the second part of the group stage when Rebrock in 4 games only got 2 points out of 12, and we had 2 home games to get a 1 win to advance, and we tied both of them, and we ended up losing to Bragantino second team, which all the teams got at least a tie or even win, and we lost to them. So we know this wasn't the best Rio Branco version. Of course, a lot of budget limitations, playing Copa Paulista Cup back after being absent for 7 years, but if you see the overall picture of the season, was a great season. Rio Branco ended up playing again in the A level, A4, and got promoted to the A3. We won a championship after a 12-year drought. So overall, great season. And I was even talking to the fans, like literally 2 years ago, Rio Branco was humiliated, lost 5 games in a row, had their worst season in the bottom of the bottom, and 2 years later, Rio Branco is now not on the bottom. Rio Branco lives in the third division, went back to being a champion. So overall, I give the season an A. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, you set out and you accomplished your goal, and you said even after you won the championship that this Paulista Cup was going to be, I mean, extra, right? And it's a good
yeah,
experience, and that's the thing; it's a good experience, and you guys hopefully will learn how to win those close games at home in A3 because you're going to have to if you have hopes of advancing to
yeah.
A2.
Yeah, the coach is going to remain Leandro Melic. He's under a lot of fire from the fans. Of course, fans, a lot of them feel that he is a lot of defensive coach, that in reality, the previous coach, Rafael Pereira, has a lot of more merits over him, which I disagree. I saw how very close how he had a lot of influence over the team, even though he was not officially the coach, but deep down he like do all the training, all the methods, all the tactics.
Spoken like a true PR person. Hey, no one.
Yeah,
I mean, at least not many other people in Americana can understand this conversation. So tell me how you really feel, Gus.
I mean, he the only thing that he couldn't do was being on the field when the game happened because of the stupid rule where since he coached the team in the same tournament in the same season, he couldn't coach another team. And Rio Branco just found a loophole that made he like a coordinator, like a head coordinator of the soccer department, like literally like kind of like a title, but he did all the practices. Like he had a lot of influence in like starting lineup. Of course, Rafael Pereira play a huge role in kind of get the group together, a motivator. He was a team player that understood his role of being the coach on the field. But he Leandro Medic is very knowledgeable of soccer. Like he has a lot of knowledge. But of course, the team that he coached in A4 was very different in the Paulista Cup. We lost the goal scorer, best defender, and best player of the tournament, Brandão. Gustavo Brandão left. Ricardo Nascimento, a very experienced homegrown defender, left. Eder, the best goalkeeper of the tournament, left. Rafael Lopez, for me, the best striker in the tournament, left. So we lost very key players, and the replacement, they were not bad, but they were not good enough.
Yeah, and as you said, as a small club, you're going to have those growing pains, like that,
Yeah,
especially when you're playing higher level competition. So, at the end of the day,
yeah,
though, you have every reason to be proud of that team. And now begins, I guess, your off season with Rio Broncos. So,
yeah.
so when will they be back?
So Rebranco professionally will be back on January 2025 in the third division of the Paulista State Championship. Probably is going to be mid to late January, I believe. But there's probably the off, the the coaches, the all the coaching staff is going to be back in mid November, and the practice is going to start mid to late November, and then we're going to have practicing games and all that stuff starting in early December. So
And
there's
that's right,
already a
because you got to
schedule.
start in the middle of the summer. I mean, that's going to be those are some brutal practices.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. We know that. That's true, but that's the and we have to anticipate because the competition is going to be bigger. There's going to be more better teams with higher payrolls. So Rio Branco is in another division, which means more competition. But hopefully Rio Branco stays on track, and I'm happy to be part of this. I was talking to Rio Branco's GM, which is very close to me, and I'll say I'm very proud to be in Rio Branco right now in this rebuilding, because destroying um, a sporting club or destroying a legacy in sports is easy. Rebuilding is hard. Rebuilding in sports is really, really hard, especially in soccer, where if you have a few bad seasons, you go from top to bottom real quick. And going bottom to top back is really hard. So that's what
Right.
Broncos trying to do right now, and Rio Branco is on track.
Absolutely. And, obviously, I hope the offseason goes well. Hope, whatever they need to do in terms of free agency signings, recruiting, whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
Kind of how does player acquisitions work in the offseason?
So now Rio Branco is kind of evaluating the players' contracts, who's going to be released, who's going to be, sent on a loan to another teams this season, um, who's going to, remain, training at the club, That's the week to make decisions, and Rio Branco's front office is going to do all those decisions for those, who's going to be released, who's going to be loaned to another team, and who's going to be renew their contract and all that stuff.
Mhm.
It's going to be pretty much, I mean, because up until Saturday 4:40 4:45 p.m. we couldn't make a decision like that, because we were advancing to the playoff, but now we're not. So that's why now this week is going to be decisions on Thursday. Rio Broncos GM Breno Prezoto is going to hold a press conference talking about the future. I was the one who advised, like, you need to go to the podium and talk to the fans to, set the, talk about the future, because since Rio Branco has all the, path to, all those decisions kind of being already set up, it's good to go on the podium and tell the fans, like, we know what we're doing. We have a path.
See, I see. I like that. So you're the good type of PR who will put his people in front of the media because it shows decisiveness, it shows action. Not one of these PR people that hides
No,
behind like press statements or whatever.
No. I always try to advise people in Rio Broncos, like, be upfront to the media, like, tell like it is. Of course, I kind of try as a good PR, like, you can send messages in different ways. Like, you can say the same thing in different ways. So kind of advice, try to say like more like that. But one thing it was funny, kind of behind the scenes story, like, so there was a post game press conference that we held during the Paulista Cup, and there was no journalist there. So people send audio message with questions to the coach. I kind of do that for people who cannot be in line, like in person in the press conference. So then we record all the press conference, and then I was watching with the coach in the first question, and I was watching with them. I was like, this didn't sound good. Do you want to record it again? And we recorded again the beginning of the press conference, because there was nobody there. So, nobody knew like the first answer. So I kind of try always tell to stand on message.
Absolutely. Shout out to some of our commenters here. We got Marcelo DeSena
Oh,
saying
he's
hello.
asking you a question. He's asking you if you're coming to Brazil, São Paulo, to watch Green Bay Packers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, you're
I
invited.
wish.
You're
I
invited.
wish. I know. Absolutely. And I will make it to Brazil eventually, but I won't be able to make it here in 3 weeks. Got some
Yeah,
stuff cooking in the oven.
no, I know. You're a hardworking man. You need to, your career's on a high. So you're
Trajectory, yeah.
Yeah, you're a good like, but you're invited. You see, people are asking you, Nick, when you're coming to Brazil. See, the people are asking you, Nick. They want to know
I
when
I
you're
will
coming to
deliver. I will. The American ambassador for Rio Branco must make his visit.
Oh yeah. And shout out to my big friend, Big Carlos.
Yeah, shout out to Carlos. It looks like we have
TV.
temper. Okay, there you go. You're back. All right.
Yeah. He called me the big cannon of radio and TV because like big cannon, like
Oh,
because
yeah,
I'm a cannon of sound.
exactly.
Yeah. Just,
Exactly.
just to wrap up Brazil sports, week 23 of the Brazilian Championship ended. Botafogo, what a win. 4-1 against Flamengo, even though both of them were playing with their summer reserves, What a statement from Botafogo beating their arch rivals, the local rivals, and rivals in terms of Brazilian title Flamengo. That's a really good win. Like I'm impressed. I mean, of course, Botafogo has a big challenge on Wednesday against Palmeiras in the round of 16 in the Libertadores. I think Botafogo is gonna win a title this season. I mean, it's about time.
If they win that game, I think they're going to win the Nationals. Because here's the thing, I know if I'm just a casual American learning about this week by week by doing this podcast, I can only imagine what they're hearing at home about
Oh,
how they blew last year, about how they blew their 3-0 lead last year against Palmeiras and then fell apart. That's been eating at that organization, and now they get a
oh
chance
yeah.
to fight back against Palmeiras.
The Palmeiras game is for Libertadores, not for the Brazilian Championship. It's for the
Yes.
playoffs of the South American Champions League, which Botafogo not even king. Botafogo is the only team out of the Big 12 we call the Big Four of São Paulo, Big Four of Rio, two from Minas and two from Rio Grande do Sul that never won this tournament. He's the only one. So they if they won Libertadores, it's gonna be historical. So and beating the three-time champions, I mean, eliminating them, it's huge. So this game is gonna be on Wednesday. And speaking of Palmeiras, I went to Palmeiras game on Sunday. They won 2-1 against São Paulo, but there's a lot of skepticism with Palmeiras fans. They believe they can advance on Wednesday, but you know it's the Palmeiras fans are showing signs of kind of being tired of Abel Ferreira. They're not happy with their coach, even though their coach won everything he could. He's always going to be legendary, but it's shown signs of you know kind of fatigue. When a coach, even though he won everything, shows that he's not getting the best of his players.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
kind of moment that Abel Ferreira is under Palmeiras, I feel like. And I told a fellow journalist yesterday, I really think that this year is last year of Abel Ferreira in Palmeiras. I think he he like did everything he could. He extracted the best from his players, but I think he's gonna be leaving by the end of the season. That's a feeling. I don't have. It's not information. It's a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you can always you can. I feel like there's very often you can tell when something good is kind of coming to a halt and momentum it begins to die off. And it sounds like, based on what you're telling me, that's the situation.
Yeah, yeah, and let's see about Wednesday. Corinthians play Bragantino also for Sul-Americana. I believe they're going to advance. São Paulo on Thursday is going to be a big challenge against Nacional from Uruguay, but I believe they're going to advance. But it's going to be tough. Might be on penalty kicks and Flamengo. They're going to the high altitude of La Paz, Bolivia against Bolivar. They won 2-0
Always
the first
hard.
game. Oh my God. Let me see.
And also,
Mil-
isn't Bolivia still like in a really really tense like situation right now, in terms of like their government and stuff, or have they got that
kind,
resolved?
kinda. They're always a mess, but the real problem is the 13,123 foot in terms of high altitude.
Yeah, it's like
Like,
playing in Denver.
yeah. Wait, how is the altitude in Denver?
Well, Denver's a mile high. I think there might be like half of that. And, Mexico City
Uh,
is also really high up too.
Let me see
Uh,
how much in
5,280 feet.
five. So, how much is the mile high in Denver?
5,280 feet.
feet. Okay, let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's five uh
That's,
5,283.
yeah.
Oh,
And,
Flamengo is playing in almost three times that.
oh my gosh. I mean, that just makes me dizzy thinking about it.
Yeah, they're playing
Think
three
about
times that.
the tallest mountain in Tennessee. It's like 6,500 feet.
Yeah, and the altitude in Bolivia is 13,123.
Man, that's like twice. I mean,
Yeah,
I wonder how far a field goal you could kick there. Like you get like Harrison Bucker or like one of the really elite kickers. Get like Justin Tucker. Because in
yeah.
Denver, those guys can kick like 65, 70 yards. I bet there they could kick like 80.
Oh yeah, for
How far
sure.
could
I mean,
like Joe Milton or like Patrick Mahomes throw?
oh my god, they can throw from like the 10 to the 15-yard line. I mean, because La Paz is one of the worst places to play sports, I imagine, because of the high altitude. I mean, players literally, like Brazilian teams, literally bring oxygen tanks to their
I mean, you
players.
have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
that's like halfway up to like, think about Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world is like 29,000 feet. And of course, you go above like three-fourths the way up. If you don't have oxygen, you're going to die.
yeah, yeah. So Flamengo has a huge challenge on Thursday. And I mean, a 2-0 lead is good, but Flamengo's going to have to, at least, keep it strong at the beginning of the game because, if they conceded, I feel like one goal by the 15th or 20th minute, then it's real problem because by the end of the game, players are going to be way tired than they usually would in Brazil. So it's
Man.
going to be a big, big challenge for Flamengo. And if they were eliminated, things can get heated again in in Rio de Janeiro for Flamengo because you got destroyed by your rival and then eliminated in the biggest competition of the season. It's going to be
Yeah.
a trouble.
And plus, I'm looking at pictures of La Paz now. It's actually like a really cool city. Like with all the mountains, they've got like a 20,000-foot mountain and stuff. So, that's
No,
where
yeah,
like Titicaca is. Okay. Yeah.
oh yeah, I hopefully one day I'll be able to visit La Paz. Hopefully to see like how is it for Brazilians going there. Like if it's that bad that always people tell me about it.
Absolutely. But I mean, if you go there and don't play sports, I mean, yeah, it's going to like cause you problems. But like going to like run or something, I mean, yikes.
Yeah. So that's kind of it for Brazilian uh sports and oh, by the way, the first thing I want to talk about in American sports, but still in soccer, Mauricio Pochettino, former Tottenham and Chelsea coach, aligned to be the new U.S. men's national team coach. And my thoughts were good. I give this a B plus higher. I like they went out of the box. They didn't got nobody from MLS, nobody from the old buddy system. They got a Argentinian coach, which is kind of the trend of the MLS right now with Gonzalo Pineda to Tata Martino to other kind of Argentinian coaches. So American players are kind of getting very used to from this past like 7 to 8 years playing under Argentinian coaches. And Mauricio Pochettino also has a lot of European experience with coaching in Chelsea, Tottenham. So he also knows what are good players in what good play American players in Europe. So overall, good hire.
Oh, for sure. And as you said, the big thing is no MLS actually has international experience, quality international experience. And, at the end of the day, how much difference will this make in 2026? I don't know. It feels like our main development window has been squandered as is. But at the very least, maybe they can, salvage a knockout stage win here. That's all I'm asking for in 2026 is one knockout stage win.
And maybe one person that had a big role of this hire was Christian Pulisic, because Pulisic worked with Pochettino at Chelsea, so maybe he had some influence over this hire. I don't know, but probably the people under the U.S. Soccer Federation called him as like, so what are your thoughts on Pochettino? I I think he would might have some say about that, especially he's being the biggest star in U.S. soccer right now.
I'd be curious what Jason's thoughts are, because he's been at Chelsea the last 2 seasons, and that hasn't exactly been great, the last 2 years. But I know that like Chelsea's problems are not necessarily exclusively just coaching. They also the Russian oligarch they had. I forget what their name is.
Oh my God, I forgot you.
This is where I need Jason, because Jason actually is an expert on Chelsea. I am not, but I know after they lost the Russian.
No, Roman Abramovich. Yeah, because Roman Abramovich was the owner for almost 2 decades, from like 2003 up until 2022. Yeah, 20.
Right,
Yeah,
and because they remember that's when they won Premier League, they won Champions League,
yeah.
and then ever since he had to sell, Chelsea's been in the gutter.
Yeah, because of course, changing ownership is always hard. And for me, Mauricio Pochettino's kind of, disappointment was not even Chelsea, it was at Tottenham. Because even though he had a good performance, he never won a title. Like, he went to the Champions League final, couldn't deliver. But the biggest blunder was not that. It was in 2016 Premier League, where he coached Tottenham to, was leading the Premier League and then losing the title to Leicester City. For me, that was the biggest blunder in Pochettino. For me, like losing that Premier League title under with Tottenham in 2016 to Leicester City.
So I'm actually texting Jason to give me his thoughts on Mauricio Pochettino. Pochettino. I guess I got to learn how to say his name So in any case, because he's the one who's going to actually be the expert on this and tell us if we should actually be excited for this hire or if we should be disappointed in the U.S. even considering going in this direction.
Yeah, I text him too if he can jump in to talk.
Well, I apparently he was in Canada today, so I don't know if he's still in Canada.
Oh wait, he will be invited next week. He'll be invited next week, definitely, to give his thoughts. We have a lot of time, but I wanted to kick off American topics with that news because, of course, it's a big news in terms of soccer, especially in a country that is going to host the 2026 World Cup.
Absolutely, because that's going to be make or break for American soccer. And if he responds back by text or joins, we'll definitely circle back around to that topic just because I want to hear his thoughts on that. But anyway, let's get to some college football. And he actually might be able, if he joins us, would chime in on this too, because this is the ACC. The ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, and prominent traditional ACC members, Stanford and California, join the conference this year, because everyone knows you can walk about 20 minutes west of Stanford's campus and touch the Atlantic Ocean.
I guess they should change the name to CC Coast the two or TCC, two coast conferences.
Or we keep the ACC to say we're all coast conference.
Yeah, all coast conferences. All coast.
Also, predominantly known for being next to a coastline. Well, actually, because Texas is next to a coastline, but SMU has also now officially joined the ACC as well. So 3 very random additions for the ACC this year, and it gets them up to 17 teams. And also you have Notre Dame, which is just loosely affiliated, but we'll include them into this preview because otherwise...
I call the booty call of college football. Notre Dame makes ACC kind of like a booty call, like, hey ACC, I'm here. I like you, but I'm not, officially with you. I call that relationship in college football. That's the kind of relationship I would you know analyze it with Notre Dame and the ACC, because as we stated
Absolutely.
before, like as we stated before, when Notre Dame needed a conference to survive in the 2020 season, who do they call? Who do they call?
The ACC.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and when they didn't need a conference, they like, see ya.
Yeah. But in any case, where do we start here with the ACC? Because the ACC has had kind of a rough offseason because ultimately, okay, Jason has responded. So this is his thoughts on Mauricio Pochettino. So we'll come back to AZ in a second. He says best coach USMT has ever had. Tactically stubborn and frustrating at club level for Chelsea, but has marginal success at top clubs like Chelsea, PSG, and Tottenham. Will be better than any previous USMT coach and comes in with exponentially more accolades.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree. I agree.
if he approves of it, then I approve it as well.
Yeah, yeah. I that and on top of that, you know, he is somebody that is also have a good connection with Latin players, which are kind of growing in the U.S. kind of team.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get back into the ACC here. So it's been a rough offseason for the ACC because, Pac-12 dies. People now look at the four big conferences and they wonder, could any one of these others meet that same fate? And I feel like a lot of people look at the ACC and wonder if they're not heading down a similar road. And I guess you look at the additions that they have, like Stanford and California, I don't know why they're in the ACC. Outside just purely because the Pac-12 died and they needed somewhere to go. And then SMU just kind of randomly is there too. And Florida State, Clemson are begging to get out. I don't know long term what the health of the ACC is going to be.
I mean, the ACC has been under scrutiny and kind of, it was downgraded on December 8th, 2024, when an undefeated ACC champion did not make to the playoffs. That was a very tough day for the ACC, and this season they needed to show. I guess now with this new format, they are not gonna have like a situation like that again. But still, like they needed to answer back,
Yeah,
because that was humiliating not only for the state Seminoles, but the ACC as a whole.
that was so humiliating. And then how Florida State chose to respond to that. Instead of bowing up together and proving it against Georgia that they belong, they folded up, gave up all the players left, and they lost 63-3 in the Orange Bowl. I mean, doubling down on the embarrassment, I mean, the best thing that happened to the ACC in the postseason was Clemson barely beating Kentucky and Dabo celebrating it like his national championships, which that in its own right was also embarrassing. And that's after, too, the runner-up, Louisville, and apologies to Jason here, but they lost to Kentucky, too. A team that was in the bottom half of the SEC last year.
Yeah.
It just, and think about all and like how many SEC teams would have won the ACC last year, right? Clearly, Bama and Georgia both. I think Missouri would have. I think LSU. Well, okay, I know Florida State beat LSU by 4 touchdowns, so maybe
But
not.
but LSU was defeated by Florida State when Florida State was healthy, not the Florida State in December. Let's remember that.
That is correct.
If LSU Florida State would have played in December when the conference championship game would have happened, LSU would have beat it.
True. I'm not going to go full on delusional and say Tennessee would have won the ACC because Florida State was a better team last year, but I think Tennessee would have beaten Florida State in December. I think. It would have been an interesting game. I think Ole Miss would have won the ACC. So, I mean, the ACC as a whole, it's just not as strong. But as you mentioned, with the new format, at least one team's got to get into the playoff. And the question is, can they get multiple teams into the playoff? Is the question. And I feel like that's going to require some big non-conference wins. So what teams could be in that conversation, right? Of course, you start with the reigning champion, as you see, Florida State. And Florida State has a lot to replace because Jordan Travis got hurt late, kind of similar to Hendon Hooker in 2022. Jordan Travis was basically the Hendon Hooker of last year. He gets hurt in the second to last week, and then Florida State had to limp at quarterback. But unfortunately for them, they didn't really have a Joe Milton waiting in the wings because if you remember, Joe Milton came in against Vanderbilt and Clemson in 22, played really, really well for Tennessee. Florida State did not have that. Florida State's offense fell off a cliff without Jordan Travis, and that's part of the reason why they got left out. As unfair as that was, we saw in the Rose Bowl why the CFP was correct in doing so. Because we got an all-time classic game.
Oh, yeah.
So, but now they bring in DJ Ujalele, or however you say his name.
DJ Ugalele.
Yeah, I think people say Nico Imialava is hard to say, but I think Nico's name actually is a lot easier to say than his name, than DJU. Of course, DJU's had an interesting career, right? Started at Clemson, didn't really work out there, got replaced by Craig Klubnik, decided to go out to Oregon State, had an okay year there last year. Of course, Oregon State's program implodes, so he's on the transfer ship again, goes to Florida State. So he's on his third team. Will actually have to play his former team this year in Clemson. When it comes to Ujalele, right, we've seen what he is. And I do not see him at his third school being so much better that's going to elevate Florida State.
I mean, yeah, because he came with a lot of expectations with Clemson. He came with a lot of tip on his shoulder. Replacing Trevor Lawrence was not easy. So imagine replacing one of the best quarterbacks in college football history. So, and I guess when he transferred to Oregon State, maybe the team wasn't as good enough to for him. But now he has a good chance to say, hey, now is my time. I'm I'm in a good program, and it's my time to shine.
Right, but the receiving core isn't elite. Their best receiver is probably Malik Benson. Of course, they had Karen Coleman last year, but he's gone. He's in the NFL now. Running back, they're just okay at. And then you look at the defensive side; they've lost some stars over there as well, including Jared Verse, who was their big star in defense last year. So, and Mike Norvell has done a really good job at Florida State because you remember Florida State was really bad when he took over.
Oh yeah.
So he's done a really phenomenal job. But I think this year is huge for him because I think a lot of people are questioning how close that locker room really is after what happened at the end of last year. Getting left out and then just laying down and being beaten like a piñata against Georgia. How is this program going to respond to that? And they're going to have to play on a stage in front of everyone this Saturday against Georgia Tech. So, and I do want to get to Georgia Tech in a little bit, but I do want to stick with some of the top ACC teams. So, obviously, I said at Florida State, the team from the ACC that everyone likes to talk about, including us, is the Clemson Tigers. And obviously, I make fun of Dabo Swinney for a litany of things, primarily not using the transfer portal. And that really stuck true. I think he got one player out of the portal this year. That's it. So the Clemson team that you have seen is the Clemson team you're going to get. Clay Klubnik included. They have Phil Maffa at running back, who I think is okay. He's a really good power back, but I feel like in the modern game, you really need speed backs, unless there's someone so dominant like a Derrick Henry. But Phil Maffa is not Derrick Henry, in my opinion. And they start off the year against Georgia. And I think games like this are super key to the ACC getting multiple teams into the playoff. Like Clemson, the teams like Clemson will have to find a way to upset Georgia because they're not going to have a lot of other opportunities for marquee wins throughout the season.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Dabo Sweeney has to respond because uh, in a span of 4 years, he went to being an elite coach, considered to be replacing Nick Saban, now barely surviving at Clemson. So he needs to, respond in terms of his critics, saying he's not a top tier college football coach anymore.
All right. You want to hear? So remember how hot my take was last week of USC starting 4-8?
Yeah.
Okay, I got one that may be even hotter for you here. Okay, I think Clemson starts 1-4 because here's their first 5 games. So you have Georgia and Atlanta, which is basically a road game. Then you come home and play Appalachian State, known giant killer.
Yeah, I think App State can give some trouble.
Then the next game is home against NC State, a top 25 team.
Which also in also recent years gave Clemson trouble. I remember, I think one game, NC State took Clemson when it was top ranked down to the overtime.
Yep. Then they get Stanford at home, which I think they'll win, and then at Florida State. Like they could start 1-4.
I see 2-3. I see 2-3.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that we're talking in this respect about Clemson, we would like pin into the playoff every single year for like a 5-year stretch, no problem. When they had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, that's not the case anymore for the Tigers.
Yeah, that's and comes back to my question: is Dabo Swinney a top tier level coach?
Well, 5-6 years ago, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, but how much of those teams were him versus his coordinators versus his recruiting?
But I'll come down to like it's still for me, like literally in 2019, 2020, when there was the first rumors of Nick Saban's retirement, the answer of who's going to replace him was almost unanimous, Dabo Swinney. And then when Nick Saban actually retired this year, his name was not even considered.
Yeah,
that's how fast his kind of level of coaching went down.
I mean, I just remember him getting into a fight with a fan last year. Remember Tyler from Spartanburg called into the show and asked why they were 4-4, and he got all mad and defensive. He
was even calling out student media. I think I remember kind of.
Right. Just they were in shambles last year as a program. So I don't think they're heading in the right direction at all. I mean, we just went in and got a 5-star offensive lineman as the balls in North Carolina, a guy that Clemson would have gotten 5 years ago. So the times have changed. Times have changed indeed for the Clemson Tigers. But in any case, beyond those two, you start looking at the rest of ACC and thinking, okay, which one of these teams could be playoff contenders? Yeah, a popular pick has been NC State this year. And of course, as Vols fans, we're going to see NC State in week 2. And the thing that makes them interesting is having Grayson McCall at quarterback. He's the former Coastal Carolina coach, or Coastal Carolina quarterback. Had a lot of success there. But, playing against Tennessee, that'll be like one of the biggest games he's ever played in. Right? And then going to Clemson. But outside of that, NC State has a very winnable schedule, a very doable schedule. Those are the only 2 ranked teams in the preseason NC State plays.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like it's it's a team that can give some trouble in the ACC. Last year, they were the third best teams in terms of overall in conference wins. So I think the Wolfpacks can remain in the top five at least in the ACC.
Right, and I think they also have Kevin Conception at wide receiver is really good. Jordan Waters, their senior running
Oh,
back,
I
is
just
really good.
saw Knoxville Mayor. Sorry. I just saw Knoxville Mayor Indian King Cannon in the DNC. I had to say that. Sorry.
Oh yeah, well, we were talking pre-show, and I saw the Hamilton, my county's Democratic Party chair at the DNC, as well as the president of the United States is up at the podium right now. At least the current
Sorry.
president will not be the president in 5 months, but yeah, I just see her now. Yeah, she just popped up. So a lot of Tennessee love tonight by the DNC cameras. Now I will. Now we will move away from that before we make anyone mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to all of you lovely Tennessee Republicans too.
Yeah.
I love all Tennesseans regardless of Republican or Democrat.
I like Indian King Cannon and Glenn Jacobs. I just say that. Hey, Knoxville, Knox County.
Well, Glenn Jacobs. Never mind. I'm not. We're not going to go into that. But in any case,
but back to college football.
We're talking about.
Also, people in the South love.
Yes. Okay, so we got NC State, where we talked about Louisville. I mean, obviously, Louisville made the ACC title game last year, in Brian Brom's first year. A year that I don't think a lot of Louisville fans were expecting. I remember, Jason being surprised by how good they were. And Louisville, I think the catalyst for that last year was upsetting Notre Dame. And, of course, they go to Notre Dame in week 4. They get to host Miami. They go to Clemson. I think the thing for Louisville is they kind of had a little bit of a disappointing end, right? Like they were a top 10 team. They lost to Kentucky. Then go and lose to a third-string quarterback with Florida State because their quarterback, Jack Plummer, was not very good. I mean, they won 10 games in spite of their quarterback. And I feel like if Louisville can find a more consistent quarterback, like Louisville could actually be a bit more dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. Last season, it was a roller coaster. First was kind of non-expectations. Then they were riding high. At some point, there was a slim chance of Louisville making the college football playoff because I remember some point if Louisville won all the game, win it all the end of the games, at the end of their schedule, there was a chance they would have made the playoffs. But they, of course, as you said, lost to Kentucky and Florida State. But still, finishing the season overall 10-4 was good. And I think they can keep in the top 5. I think the team that I think is gonna have the biggest downfall is the Tar Heels. I think North Carolina without Drake May is gonna have a big downfall.
Oh yes, I 100% agree. I don't know if they're going to have a defense at all this year, which has been a problem for them, and they don't have Drake May this year to cover that up.
Yeah, and Mac Brown, he is probably a little bit in the hot seat because even though he was a legend in the Longhorns, winning the national title, he is going to his 5th season with no good results. Last year was the expectations at least to a big bowl game, and they ended up finishing up 8-5, losing the last 3 games in the season.
Yes. Now, I think also a team that we also love to talk about from the ACC as well, for some shenanigans that happened during the games, the Miami Hurricanes. Man, this team could have been so good last year with competent coaching. We will never forget the blunder that was the Georgia Tech game. And then it felt like the season has spiraled from there. If you look back through Mario Cristobal's 2 years, right? They get blown up by MTSU in year one, lose to Duke by like 4 touchdowns with 8 turnovers, and then have the Georgia Tech blunder. I mean, Mario Cristobal is recruiting at a high level. Don't get me wrong. He is recruiting at a very high level. But so far, he has not proven on the field that he can win at a high level.
Yeah, and now which is harder to him is that he did a good. He was hired by Miami because he did a greater job at Oregon. Guess what? His replacement is doing even better than Lanning.
Yeah.
So,
and I remember back then, Mario Cristobal's, they were like, yeah, Mario Cristobal's increasing the talent at Oregon, but he isn't winning anything. Remember, yeah, Justin Herbert didn't do anything.
yeah. So, I guess now he's going to his 3rd season. He at least needs to be a good start. Of course, as we talked about when we did our SEC preview, the game that is going to set up the mood of the season is the opener against the Florida Gators. That's going to be, we talked about for the Gators side, and that's true for also the Hurricanes. That's why I think that's the biggest game in the week 1.
Yeah, I mean, that game is good. Whoever loses that game, you can forget it this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Miami has a better chance of recovering from that loss than Florida does because Miami doesn't quite have the same tough schedule, but still, Miami will obviously they got to play Florida State, and I think for Miami, like beating Florida State would be a huge deal for them, especially since they do get them at home, even though their home is an hour away from campus and they get no one to show up for their games.
And probably the Florida State fans from Tallahassee and all over North Florida are gonna, come hard in Miami.
Yep.
Probably it's gonna be like a 50-50, 55-45 Florida State crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sad because you look at the old days of Miami, that's not what the Orange Bowl was like at all. So, but Miami has lost relevance, even in its own city. Now, some teams I think are up and coming. First and foremost, I want to shout out one of the new members, SMU. Now, I mean, people like about Stanford, Cal. Oh my gosh, why are they in the ACC? People didn't forget, oh yeah, SMU also in the ACC. And they think, oh, SMU is going to suck. No. I'm here to tell you right now, watch out for the Mustangs. I think their offense has the ability to be among the best in the ACC. They have Preston Stone's name at quarterback. Man, that guy is electric for SMU. They finished in the top 25 last year. They should have been in the New Year's Six Bowl over Liberty.
And they dominated the AAC, which is a conference that is not bad. I mean, it's not good, but it's Tulane also did good. So and it was so funny how SMU came a long way from being relevant and good from what happened in the 80s. Because I was watching a documentary recently about SMU in the 80s, and good God, they were destroyed by all the things that happened off the field.
Oh, absolutely, right? I mean, because they were the powerhouse in the early 80s, right, with Eric Dickerson and Craig James. But, of course, back then you really couldn't pay players, and there are politicians in Texas that were doing it under the table. Because the thing about SMU, there's a lot of rich people that went there. It's like one of the rich people schools in Texas. And, of course, with all the oil, that means they're really rich. I mean, most schools in Texas have a lot of money. SMU sneakily has a ton of money. And that's how they're even.
SMU is Dallas college football school. If you think about Dallas, which is the football city in Dallas, in Texas.
What I'm interested to watch over the next few years, because remember, their biggest arch rival, SMU, is TCU over at Fort Worth. Now, TCU just went to the national title game 2 years ago. And granted, I know they lost by 60 to Georgia, but they still made the national championship game. They beat Michigan. They went undefeated in the regular season in the Big 12. So you have TCU in the Big 12, SMU in the ACC. I'm curious to see which one of those two schools are better over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. because SMU is like we are back, because in the 80s they were in the Southwest, which was a really good conference with Texas A&M, Texas Longhorns, TCU, and then because of all the things that happened off the field with the issue with playing players on, they had the death penalty, and then they set the program not even years, decades back, and now they are in the good level again.
Oh, absolutely. So, their first ACC home game is against Florida State. That is going to be a scene in Dallas. And this is right. Okay, think about this: 3 straight home games that SMU has. They have BYU, which that'll be a big game at home. Then they get TCU and then Florida State. Like, that's a crazy free-run home game for SMU.
It's a very exciting way to start their journey in the ACC. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and they actually also play this Saturday night, too. They play at Nevada. They're 27.5-point favorites over the Wolfpack. I would imagine they win with ease in Reno, but hey, I'll be curious to see what they look like this week.
Like, what's cool? They play year 2. I never heard of it. Who Christian? Jesus Christ!
That's I think isn't that who is this? Houston Christian.
Houston Christian Huskies. I never heard of the school. Is that a HBCU kind of school?
Honestly, I've heard of Houston Baptist, but not Houston Christian. I feel like SMU should be playing someone a little bit better than that.
Yeah. They're in the Southland Conference. Also, never heard of it.
I think that's like Lamar is in there. Basically, schools you've never heard of.
Southeast Louisiana, in Cars.
I knew someone who went there.
Texas A&M, Commonwealth,
Commerce,
Commerce, McNeese, Indiana State, I believe, LA College.
McNeese, that's where Will Wade has been coaching at in basketball.
Yeah, so interesting. You learn a new thing every day in American sports.
Exactly. There's so many teams. But the Pony is definitely interesting. Also, the other team that's playing this week, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech had a really interesting turnaround. Actually, there's one more team after that I want to really talk about. But Georgia Tech, to me, Haynes King, when you looked at his performance last year, remember, this was the 5-star quarterback who played for Georgia Tech, played for TCU, who tried to play at Texas A&M. It didn't work out there under Jimbo Fisher, so he transferred over to Georgia Tech. And last year had a really good season, threw for 26 touchdowns. Led Georgia Tech back to a bowl game for the first time in like 5 years. And I think there's a lot of excitement around the Yellow Jackets. Now, obviously, they're nowhere close to like Georgia, but when you look at they only lost to Georgia by like 8 points last year.
Yeah, and I mean, they were the 4th. They finished 4th in the overall standings in the ACC last year, ahead of Clemson, North Carolina, Miami. So that's got to count.
Absolutely. And I think this game against Florida State is an opportunity for Georgia Tech to put themselves back on the map. Because remember, Georgia Tech, back under Paul Johnson, they won multiple ACC championships. This program, up until 2 years ago, had won a national title more recently than Georgia. I mean, Georgia Tech, when they really want to, can be really good at football because they're in Atlanta. That's one of the biggest places in the country to recruit. And when they decide they want to be good at football, Georgia Tech is good at football.
I mean, their campus is literally in the heart of Atlanta. I've been to their campus. It's a really good campus.
Exactly. And yes, I know the Bulldogs are always going to be king in Georgia, but there's room there for Georgia Tech. 100% there's room for Georgia Tech. And I'm going to go on a limb here. I think Georgia Tech beats Florida State on Saturday.
Wow, like when they upset it in 2015?
16, yes. Yeah, that's when I saw that clip earlier today, actually. Someone put it on Twitter of the blocked field goal, and then it was Mark Jones saying, What a time to be alive. Man, I remember watching that live. That was such an awesome game. And I think this is going to be a good game on Saturday. I think Georgia Tech, it's going to be a one-possession game. These opening games tend to actually be really good. Remember last year, Northwestern came back to beat Nebraska by 3 points. And that kind of led to the end of wait, that was 2 years ago. And then last year was Notre Dame and Navy that played in Ireland. But 2 years ago, you had Nebraska, Northwestern, and that led to the end of Scott Frost. So, in any case, that's my pick for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and interesting on week 2, they kind of have the kind of like the battle for Atlanta between the Georgia Tech and the Georgia State, because both play in Atlanta and their stadiums are like 5 miles apart between Bobby Dodd Stadium and Turner Field.
Yeah, be very afraid, Georgia Tech. Be very, very afraid, because playing Georgia State is not for the faint of heart. All right, there's actually 2 more teams I want to bring up. So Virginia Tech, a team that I feel like I ratted on a lot early last year because they came out, they lost to Purdue, lost to Rutgers, lost to Marshall. They were an underdog to Marshall early on in the season. I'm just like, I was sitting here, I remember telling you guys, what has happened to Virginia Tech? Because, they used to be like a top 10 team like every single year, and now they're just terrible. But to their credit, they turned it around in the second half of last year and finished, 7-6?
Yeah, 7-6. They won their last 2 games of the season.
Exactly. So they came out really strong. And I think they have a really strong chance to start off really good because they bring back virtually everybody. I think they bring like all but like 2 starters, including their quarterback. His name is Kyron Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. And he looked really good towards the end of last year. Of course, they start off the season at Vanderbilt, which I think they're better than them. I think they can 100% win that game. And you start looking for the schedule, they go to Miami. You get Rutgers at home, a team that could be sneaky good. I think that Rutgers Virginia Tech game going to be it's a very underrated game this year, because I think those are 2 teams that are fighting to be relevant and to be fringe top 25 teams. And if they're fringe top 25, now with the new playoff format, you can make a run at the playoff, right? So that's a game I think that's going to be worth watching on September 21st. Of course, when they play Georgia Tech, I think that's going to be big. They host Clemson, which, Blacksburg will be nuts for that. So, I mean, that's a game I'm certainly very interested in. Also, one last team that's going to be catching my eye this year, Syracuse. And primarily because they have Kyle McCord, the former Ohio State quarterback, who really wasn't great in Columbus. There's a lot of hype around Syracuse, though, and I don't really buy it. Because I'm like, if you weren't good at Ohio State with, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL draft, right, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Abuga and Ryan Day, why should I expect you to be great at Syracuse?
Yeah, that's going to be a big challenge, I think. That's that because it's different. Playing in a powerhouse compared to like Syracuse.
Absolutely, but in any case, I think I feel like we've touched on most of the teams in the ACC. I don't think either California school is going to be great. I think Duke's going to fall off significantly with no Mike Elko after he left to Texas A&M, and they lost their quarterback too, Riley Leonard, to Notre Dame, who we'll touch on here in a minute. Boston College it's Boston College. I mean, I don't know what else to say to that. Boston College might be the most irrelevant P4 program.
I mean, they had a relevance with Matt Ryan, right? When they were
and Doug Flutie.
Second in the country.
Yeah, but that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah,
there's UVA.
Yeah,
poor UVA. Tony Elliott stinks. I don't know why they kept him. So they'll suffer again until they fire him. Pittsburgh just feels like they're kind of mediocre now. I mean, last year was not very good. I mean, I felt like they peaked a few years ago with Kenny Pickett. It doesn't feel like they're getting back there anytime soon.
Yeah, I remember when they beat Tennessee in Knoxville. That was a
Yeah, right. Wake Forest, probably a Verge Bowl team at best. But losing Sam Hartman a few years ago, that felt like that's when they peaked. Instead, I just don't. Okay, out of Stanford or California, which one of those two schools do you think would have a chance to be good? I think playing in this conference is going to be really hard for both of them.
Oh yeah, for sure, because both of them kind of were on the top in the Pac-12, and we talk about the Boston College peak. Also, Stanford only peak with Andrew Luck, so they
And
kind of
Christian McCaffrey.
yeah. And Cal, I mean, they had a chance also in 2007 on for the national championship, and they lost badly on the last play of the game, and I guess they never recover it. So
Yeah, and to be fair, I think Cal will be at least better. Cal actually has an okay defense. I will give them that, and they made a bowl game last year, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to be particularly fantastic, to say the least.
yeah.
Okay, so before we get into Notre Dame, which two teams do you think make the title game in the ACC, and who do you think wins?
Florida State, Clemson, and give me the Seminoles.
Okay. I will go with Florida State and Miami.
Whoa! So Mario Cristobal
I-
turns around.
Yeah, well, I think it's more of a fact that I think Miami to me has the most talented roster in the ACC. I really think top to bottom they have the most talented roster, and at some point in this week of a conference, that's got to count for something. I think SMU is going to be right there. I think Georgia Tech's going to be in the running, and I think Louisville is going to be right there. As I said, I just think Clemson. This is finally the year where you really see them fall off. So I think your champion will come between one of those five. And frankly, I'm going to pick Miami. I think Miami finally wins an ACC championship this year. They've never won one since they joined in 2004, but I'm going with the Canes. So if we think about the playoffs, so far I've picked Texas to win the ACC, our SEC. I've picked Ohio State to win the Big Ten. And I've picked Miami to win the ACC. Gus, I think you was it Georgia for the SEC?
Yeah.
I think Ohio State for the Big Ten. I think.
Oh.
I think we have both Ohio State and Oregon in that title game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then you have Florida State. So, in terms of playoff contender, I just don't know. I would have to think that for example, for Florida State, if they were to lose that game, then Florida State, no question asked, has to win at Notre Dame on November the 9th. If you don't win at Notre Dame and you don't beat Florida, you're not making it to the playoff. You have to basically run the table outside of losing the ACC title game. Because I think the rest of the conference is going to be that weak that you're not going to get credit. Like a 9-3 record in the SEC is going to be better than an 11-1 in the ACC.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned Notre Dame, and we have to talk about that. How I think one thing that is going to be funny this year is how mad Notre Dame fans are going to feel when a 9-3 ACC champion is going to have a bye and a 12-0 undefeated Notre Dame is going to be on the fifth, getting the fifth ranking overall in the college football playoff rankings.
And that's the thing. That's not even that unrealistic. Like if you look at Notre Dame's schedule, right? They go to Texas A&M week 1. That's going to be a huge game. Because to me, if Notre Dame wins that game, then the rest of the schedule are all games they're going to be favored in. Right? In Northern Illinois, week 2, they'll win. At Purdue, week 3, they'll win. Miami, week 4, they'll win. Louisville, week 5. I know Louisville beat the crap out of them last year. I don't see them losing that again.
Yeah, they're gonna come out with revenge.
Right. Stanford, the last time Stanford went to South Bend, they won. I don't think it's going to happen again. At Georgia Tech could be tricky. But I think they win there. Of course, Navy, they always beat. Florida State, November 9th, again, as I said, for Florida State. If you lose the ACC title game, you've got to win that game at Notre Dame. For Notre Dame, it might be a case of they have to beat Florida State. I mean, that Florida State, Notre Dame, and a Notre Dame, Texas A&M are so important for the playoffs. Potentially huge. Of course, you get Virginia, Army. I mean, that's the problem that when you look at the schedule. Like, they play Northern Illinois, Miami, Navy, Army, Virginia, Stanford. I mean, Purdue. These are not good games for Notre Dame. So they have to win. They can only afford to lose one of Texas A&M, Florida State, and USC, in my opinion.
Yes, I totally agree. 9-3 Notre Dame, I don't think is gonna make it even as a 12 seed. As an 11 seed.
It won't be close. I mean, I don't know if 10-2 Notre Dame makes it. Let's say their 2 losses are at Texas A&M and at USC. Their only good win is like Florida State. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. And they gotta finally realize that they gonna have to join a conference, or they're gonna be facing a lot of hardship.
I will say, though, if they're going to do it, they need to do it this year. If they don't do it this year, with that schedule, they got Riley Leonard at quarterback. I mean, they've got a solid defense. I mean, Marcus Freeman, to his credit, has increased his talent level at Notre Dame. He's kind of like Mario Cristobal in a way. Look at their recruiting. Miami and Notre Dame have never recruited better in modern times. But it's time to prove it on the field. You can't have Marshalls happen. You can't have Stanfords. You can't have, what happened at Louisville last year happened. If you're Marcus Freeman, you can't afford to have it.
Yeah.
And frankly, if Notre Dame were in the conference, I would pick Notre Dame to win the ACC. I think Notre Dame will be really good this year. But as you said, they're not in the ACC, so the best they can do is the 5 seed.
And the Florida State game is interesting because last year their biggest game was against Ohio State, and they lost close, but they lost. They're gonna have to show they can win those big games.
Absolutely.
Because Texas A&M is a interesting game, but it's not a big game because of Texas A&M, setting back.
Right. But like that's it's a routine games like going to Purdue, going to Georgia Tech. Those are the games that Notre Dame has to prove they are capable of winning and winning comfortably.
Yeah, that's true. They have to.
It's going to be fascinating, to say the least. Yeah, I'm just memorizing. I'm looking back at the TV and I'm seeing Joe Biden is still going. It's like midnight. I am shocked he is still talking and functional at this hour of the day because it's past midnight here on the East Coast. Any case, I have to go back and see what the heck he even said. But one last college football note. The Volunteers, some people try to tell us that Josh Heupel couldn't recruit and that this staff couldn't recruit. Well, I have news for everyone. Josh Heupel and staff can recruit. 5-star David Sanders of Charlotte, North Carolina, followed by a 4-star linebacker from Rome, Georgia, that we took from Alabama, of all places. This guy from Rome was committed to the Tide, but he decided, nope. Jaden Harmon decided, I want to be a Vol. And the Vols right now in next year's class are top 5. Number 5, and a stat for you, in terms of blue chip recruits in this class, the most blue chip recruits in this class since 2005 for Tennessee. Combine that with the reports from practice that Tennessee is as SEC ready as it's ever looked. A lot of reason to be excited on Rocky Top.
Yeah, definitely. Josh Heupel gave a press conference today. I feel like he was excited. He also gave a really powerful speech for the new class of the 2024 volunteer class, saying there has been never a greater time to be a Tennessee volunteer, especially all the success in not only football but in baseball, basketball, so forth. And that's why, and that's true. Knoxville is the America's college sports city today.
Yeah, so like over the weekend, I went and watched Christian Moore play for the Rocket City Trash Banners against the Lookouts, and that crowd was like 80% orange. People showed up just to watch him play, and that's what Tennessee means. We were willing to brave traffic to go out and watch, minor league baseball just to watch one player.
Yes.
That's exactly what that means. And that doesn't mean that everything everywhere. You look at like the Mike Gundys of the world. We'll talk about him in the Big 12 next week. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this, Gus, but he was he went off on a report the other day saying, my players better not be asking about NIL during the season. I'm just like, some wild stuff.
I mean, you have to understand it's the new reality of college football. The NIL is going to be part of your reality. Like, you cannot ignore transfer portal, double swinging, and NIL. You just can't.
Absolutely. The Big 12 episode next week's going to be so funny because, like, we got Mike Gundy, we got Deion Sanders. I mean, and you got a whole bunch of people mad that Texas and Oklahoma left them. So, it's going to be a great last college football episode. And I guess we need to figure out how to, like, handle the G5 just because there is going to be someone for the G5 in the plot. Maybe just, like, talk about what G5 teams we think could get in to the postseason. Like, who could be that representative?
Definitely in not next week, the week after, we do a short segment about that. But I want to kind of go to our college football, predictions, because week 0 is this Saturday with three ACC schools playing next weekend.
Absolutely. So Georgia Tech, Florida State's at noon in Dublin, Ireland. It'll be college game day. Florida State fans are planning to basically tar and feather Kirk Herbstreit during this broadcast because they're still mad about last December. And see, that's the type of attitude. Florida State fans are going to come in with all this angst from what happened last year. And that's going to move over to the team. That you should still be mad about last year. Don't focus on the future. And that's part of the reason why I think Georgia Tech wins this game.
Yeah, because you have to move on. Like, if you can't move on, that will affect your performance.
Exactly. So that's why I am picking the Yellow Jackets despite them being 11.5-point underdog. Now, at 4 p.m., we have Montana State, who were the runner-ups last year in FCS, going to New Mexico. And Montana State's actually a 9-point favorite in this game in Albuquerque. I mean, how about an FBS team do you have to be a 9-point underdog to an FCS team?
I think New Mexico State wins by a field goal.
I think Montana State wins by 3 touchdowns. I don't think this will be close. I think Montana State is far better than the Lobos, and not even close. Of course, as you referred to, SMU, 27.5-point favorite at Nevada. I think
give me the Mustangs.
Absolutely. The fourth and last FBS game, we have Delaware State Hornets at Hawaii at like midnight.
Or 11:59 p.m. to be more exact.
Yeah. I don't know if this is on TV or not. I love me some late night Hawaii football. I mean, I think the Rainbow Warriors win here.
No, it's not showing any TV schedule for this one.
Or even line. There is no line for this game, too,
No,
which is very
oh,
interesting.
Hawaii is 38.5 point favorites.
Absolutely. There's
So give me
also four. Hawaii, yes. There's also 3 other FCS games. You have McNeese or Tarleton State. That's at 3:30 on ESPN2. I don't know anything about either one of those teams. I'm not going to pick it. You have FCS kickoff game, which is North Alabama versus Southeast Missouri State. That's in Montgomery, Alabama. I don't know why in the world either one of those teams would be playing in Montgomery. That makes 0 sense. But in terms of just pure entertainment, Florida A&M Norfolk State at 7:30 will be a good game. That's the HBCU kickoff classic, and if nothing else, the bands are going to be fired in that game. So
yeah.
So there you go. If you want to watch some good bands, watch Florida A&M and Norfolk State go at it. But next week, we should really honestly figure out how we want to do football picks this year. But next week it's for real. So get ready, folks. It's almost here. But speaking of football, let's switch over to some NFL. Because we're going to talk about some AFC and NFC East tonight. And of course, I don't know which one you want to start off with, Gus, between the AFC and NFC.
We can start definitely with the NFC because that's the game. That's the conference that has going to be a little bit of Brazil because one of those one NFC East team is going to host a game in my beloved Brazil in 10 days. In 10 days, almost. It's crazy how in less than 3 weeks there's going to be NFL in Brazil.
Oh, absolutely. And the NFC East, of course, is a division that everyone loves to talk about because every team has a lot of storylines. And we'll start with the Eagles, right? They're going to go to Brazil. And, of course, 2 years ago, they made the Super Bowl. Last year, they fell apart. They started off 10-1, but you could tell they really weren't great. They were skating by in a lot of games, and it fell apart. Jason Kelsey, he retired, so they're kind of replacing a huge part of their offensive line there. And Jalen Hurts, I think, is still, to me, he definitely took a step back last year, right? And has to prove he's worth that contract.
Yeah, and the first thing you need to talk about the Eagles is the relationship between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, which, according to rumors, are not the best.
Yeah, it didn't feel like they truly believed in Jalen Hurts towards the end of last year, which is crazy because literally Jalen Hurts almost won the Super Bowl for them the year before that. He went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. And also they got a really, really good acquisition on Saquon Barkley. Definitely is going to be their, best running back.
I mean, how much in the tank does Saquon actually have, though? I mean, this dude could never stay healthy in New York. He had 2 healthy seasons with the Giants. I just don't know, one, if you can depend on him being there for an entire season. And then 2, how much can a star running back really elevate your team at this point? Because, Derrick Henry was able to elevate the Titans, but that was a rare occurrence.
Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of Saquon Barkley the Eagles are gonna get? The one who fell apart by the end of his tenure in the Giants, or the one who had the 2 good seasons that you talked about?
True, but I will give Saquon the benefit of this: he will have a much better team around him in Philly than he did in New York. So I think that'll help him a lot, to say the least. I think defensively as well. The Eagles really need to replace their secondary, right? And it feels like they've made some moves in that department, but defensively they fell apart. Bless you.
Oh, thank you. Definitely the Eagles defense has been the Achilles heel of the team.
Right, and I feel like last year too, they missed having Stain Shiken and Jonathan Gannon. Not having either one of those coordinators last year really hurt. And you have to wonder, does coordinators make Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, because since his OC left, things are not been the same.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's definitely not. Um, and the pressure's only going to be mounting because if they have another subpar season, he's probably done. Because this is Philadelphia. They don't play.
I mean, if they ran Andy Reid out of town, even though he made like what 3 straight NFC championships, then like what is the patient with Nick Sirianni? I mean, they literally ran the Super Bowl winning head coach out of town
Doug
in like
Peterson.
Doug Peterson.
Yeah. I mean, they don't, as I said, the Eagles, they got to be good or else you're getting fired. I mean, it's what it is there. Speaking of getting fired, I think Daniel Jones for the New York Giants is on the verge of being shown the door. I don't know if you saw his preseason performance the other day, Gus, but he threw 2 interceptions, including a horrific pick six.
First of all, why he's playing in the preseason? I mean, because why? Like, why you like making your starting quarterback play on meaningless games to make him, be doubted even more than he already is?
Right. I mean, Patrick Mahomes played the other day, but of course, Patrick Mahomes did like insane stuff because he's Patrick Mahomes. But I didn't understand that either because I'm like, he's Patrick Mahomes. You know,
Yeah,
you don't need
like
to put him on the field.
yeah, and Patrick Mahomes could throw 4 interceptions in the preseason game, not not a one shed of sweat on the Chiefs fans because they trust him. But Daniel Jones, like, why you're putting him on a preseason game for fans to be even more skeptical about him?
Exactly. And it just does not feel like he's going to be the guy for much longer. In fact, I heard a rumor that the Giants are even looking at potentially trading for another quarterback.
Yeah, and they begs me the question why Daniel Jones was handled the contract that he has right now. Like, why? There was no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, Dave Gettleman really was the worst GM of all time. Had no idea what he was doing. And I feel bad for Brian Dable because I don't really feel like this is his fault at all for the Giants. He just inherited a really bad situation. I mean, he took Daniel Jones to the playoffs 2 years ago. So I just don't feel like that's going to happen again uh, for Jones. Um, Speaking of playoffs, though, let me save the Cowboys for last. Let's talk about the Washington Commanders first, because they did name Jaden Daniels their starting quarterback today. And you just have to wonder, it's probably the most excitement they've had around a quarterback since RG3. And who, by the way, just got fired at ESPN, which I don't really understand that, but whatever. That is what it is for ESPN. But, Jane Daniels, I think he has that potential to have some success there because he has some good pieces around him. Like, Jahan Dotson. They have, I'm blanking on his name. The really good Washington receiver that I like a lot. But in any case, Jane Daniels, I really think, he's going to be exciting to watch.
Look, McCaffrey.
Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin. They got Zach Ertz. Like, I mean, that's not a bad roster. You got Austin Eckler at running back, Brian Robinson. Like, them, they have the potential to be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
At quarterback. Also, I have to say, I feel bad for Marcus Mariota. He is now a career backup officially. I hate to see that. But...
Yeah, Mariota is in the same class of Teddy Bridgewater, Ken Newton.
Exactly.
The he is now in the class of, oh, good God, our QB1 was hurt. QB2 is not experienced enough. Bring you. He's in this class with the names that I just mentioned.
Exactly. It's never the place you want to be. That's for sure. But I mean, I don't think Washington's going to do a ton, necessarily in terms of winning, but I think they'll be more watchable, at least, which is always a plus. But now let's get to the team that's so much fun to talk about. I love talking about this team so much. The Dallas Cowboys. Because every
Oh,
single year it's drama, drama, drama.
I mean, don't you think the Cowboys kind of storyline is the same every year? High expectations, drama, um, slow start, uh, you know, ended up in a higher note, wins the division, or at least makes to the wild card in a high spot. Maybe wins the first round and loses in the divisional round. That's the always the kind of story for the Cowboys.
Exactly, because they have a maniac running the team in Jerry Jones who does stupid crap like saying, I don't have any urgency to get a deal with CD Lamb done. You're openly antagonizing the most talented player on your team. Like, and CD Lamb um, apparently updated on Instagram today, posting a picture of himself as like the Black Spider-Man. Of Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man free. I mean, the drama of the Cowboys is unreal. But I don't. How do they break the cycle? Because it feels like they're like a drug addict or something. They're in a cycle, and they need to get into rehab to get out of the cycle. How are they getting to rehab?
Admitting they're delusional. Like, what is the first thing you tell addict to do? Like, admitting you're addict. Like, admit you need help. Like, the Cowboys didn't admit they're in a delusional land, and the owners, which are responsible for the key decisions, are not. So, like, what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same things and expecting the same results.
Right.
No, doing the same
And
things and expecting different results.
Like Dak Prescott, he's going to come out. He's going to look good against bad teams. He's going to look okay against mediocre teams. And then when it comes to the playoffs, he's going to disappear.
Because Cowboys fans have fresh on their minds the way the season ended last season, how humiliating it was.
Yeah. And like we headed into that game, remember, right? Against the Packers. It was just like, man, Packers, Cowboys. The Cowboys always seem to lose this matchup in the postseason. But surely, with no Aaron Rodgers, surely this is the time that Dallas can win this game. Nope. Not even close. Just unreal to me. But, you look at their roster, they're still probably the best roster in the NFC East. And unless Philly gets it together, and it sounds like Philly has a lot of drama in their own right, I mean, I'm gonna probably have to pick Dallas to win this division again.
It's not like Dallas is the best team. I guess Dallas is the least worse, or like
least worse.
Yeah, like
maybe the only team out of the four right now that I don't feel like it's a complete dumpster maybe is Washington, but I just think they're really young. So
they might make the wild card. I wouldn't be surprised if they make like a wild card, but I don't see them right now winning the division.
Correct, because I just think Dallas and Philly are just that much better. It should come down to the Cowboys and Eagles again.
Yeah,
it should. But I do think the Cowboys are still the most talented team. They've got to find a way to re-sign CD. I mean, Jerry Jones has got to put his ego aside and sign the best player on your roster. Sign him. You lose CD, then you're expecting Dak to have any chance at all.
Like 2018 all over again when Dak did have many good weapons, especially at the beginning of the season, and then things went really bad.
Right. And where would CD Lamb go if like Dallas traded him? Like
Uh,
Baltimore maybe?
yeah, somewhere in the AFC for sure.
Right. Send him to Tennessee, please. That'd be amazing. You know what team he would be absolutely incredible on? The Colts. Because the Colts, the one thing they're truly lacking is a true wide receiver one right now. And if you put
Yes,
him on Indy, that would transform that offense.
especially with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Now, that would be my worst nightmare, but at least as an NFL fan. But in terms of where he would make sense, I think that's where he would make sense if you were to trade him. But Dallas should not trade him. All right. AFC East. I mean, this has been Buffalo's division for a few years now. Granted, Miami gave them a run for it last year. And Miami, in all intents and purposes, should have won this division. But when the calendar turned to December and things started getting cold, Miami fell apart last year. And my thing with the Dolphins is I just don't know if they can go into a cold weather environment and win.
The problem for the Dolphins is that the NFL season starts in September, not in July. If the regular season was they started in July and ended in early November, then the Dolphins would have dominated. But nope, there's games being played in December for the regular season, which means you have to deal with cold weather, especially when you are in the division with three teams in the Northeast.
Yep. And you look at these teams, right? And you look at the Dolphins, right? I know Tua had his best year last year. And I know he just got an insane contract. I still just don't believe in him long term. I don't believe he's going to stay healthy enough long term. And as we just mentioned, he didn't show up in the biggest games last year. He didn't show up in week 18 versus Buffalo. He didn't show up in Kansas City when it was like negative 30. Even though he literally has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like, he has two of the best receivers you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a season with a lot of expectations for Tua Tagovailoa, especially the contract that he got it. I mean, I think they're gonna win the division, even though they're gonna have some troubles in December.
Yeah, because Buffalo is kind of... I feel like Kansas City finally broke Buffalo.
Yeah, it
I mean, they lose to
especially
Stephon Diggs. And it feels like Josh Allen's kind of on his own right now.
yeah, and he's running out of gas because you have to carry a team, in your shoulder. You start running out of gas.
Yeah, it feels like, too, when they really paid Josh Allen that huge contract, they didn't really have a plan on how to handle the rest of the salary cap. And it feels like Buffalo is really the first team that's truly suffering because of these large quarterback contracts. And at the end of the day, Josh Allen is a turnover machine. Like, he's a great quarterback, but he throws a lot of interceptions. And that, unfortunately, when you're in thin margin games in the postseason, that matters. Like, look at the Kansas City game last year. Had him at home. Like, and we talk about how devastating that loss was for Baltimore. I think that loss broke Buffalo.
Yeah, because the year before was one of the great, the best, playoff matches in NFL history. But the game was in Kansas City. But then Buffalo played KC in Buffalo. It's like it's gonna be in our home. We can do this, and they didn't.
Exactly. And just losing in the most heartbreaking, excruciating way possible. Missed field goal. Yeah, I think Miami could totally actually win this division. Yeah, I'm really excited to watch Jalen Wright play for the Dolphins. UT alum. I think he's going to cook in the Mike McDaniel offense. and I still love Mike McDaniel as a coach. I think he's phenomenal. I really think he's still lacking a quarterback, though. I think he needs a better quarterback in that system. Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan are of course, Mike McDaniel was Kyle Shanahan's OC, so they run pretty much the same offense. And they both have quarterbacks that I don't know if either one of them can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, definitely Mike McDaniel is one of the most inspiring offensive coaches, but can he carry injury prone but talented quarterback to at least the conference championship?
Absolutely. The whole wild card in this is, does Aaron Rodgers have anything left in the tank for the Jets? And Gus, I know you've been kind of hinting at what you've been wanting to say about the Jets. So I'm going to let you have the floor here as a Jets fan. What are you seeing here? Because there's no possible way Aaron Rodgers can come back and be elite, right?
This is make it or break it, please, because you have to, make this work because it was a lot of expectations. Of course, Robert Saleh is on a hot seat because, he's a defensive coach in an offensive league that, he left San Francisco, but then he hasn't do any like anything impressive. Like the Jets hasn't made the playoffs in 13 years. Think about that. 13 years the Jets haven't made to the playoffs. Like even teams like Chicago, Jacksonville, Houston that he hit rock bottom made the playoffs during that span. Like I think probably the entire league made the playoffs. Only the Jets didn't. So that has to say something. So Aaron Rodgers, I don't expect him to be an MVP kind of level he was 4 years ago, but he has at least to make the playoffs with the Jets, or otherwise he's done for me.
Absolutely, especially when you look at Green Bay and look at what they're doing right now with Jordan Love and how much momentum they're getting. Like Green Bay is looking like the absolute geniuses in this situation, while New York is just looking desperate.
Yeah.
And so far they've gotten 4 snaps with Aaron Rodgers. And they still, I think, defensively, they still have Sauce Gardner, right? They're probably the best corner in all of the league amongst some other talent. So, you still got Breece Hall. They've got, they got the guy from Ohio State. Why am I blanking on the Jets? Well, the main receiver, wasn't it?
Brendan Smith?
No, well, they got Mike Williams. They've got Garrett Wilson. That's who I was that's who I was thinking of. They've got talent all over that field. So, but the question is, is Aaron Rodgers locked in? Because we've seen, he was flirting with running for VP with Robert Kennedy Jr. He obviously has been the subject of many political controversy over the past 2 years. How locked in is he?
He went to Egypt in the offseason for whatever reason. And
did he take another darkness retreat?
Yeah. I guess he maybe talked to some spiritual forces in, I don't know,
pyramids or something.
Yeah.
He talked to the mummies.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting some, divine intervention. But nevertheless, I feel like the Jets can be a wild card team if Aaron Rodgers play 70% what he played 4 years ago.
I mean, sure, if he is at that, but I don't know if he's going to be. I'm going to have to see it to believe, because he wasn't even really that good in his last year at Green Bay either. He hasn't been truly great since the COVID pandemic. So, and that at this point is getting further and further in the rearview mirror, and I don't see him having a 2020 Tom Brady season where they won the Super Bowl. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So, and that would be the success, right? To have a 2020 Tom Brady or have like a 2015 Peyton Manning in Denver? Can he have something like that? I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't see that level, but maybe the Jets will get the last ounce of football from him and at least make the playoffs.
That would be a success. And then the team that I think is just completely irrelevant, and this is crazy to think about to say they're irrelevant, the Patriots. My oh my, how have things changed in New England? It's just they're irrelevant. I mean, how many games are going to win this year? Maybe 2, 3, maybe. I think Drake May, he has some promise, but I think he's going to struggle a lot. He just doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. Yeah, there's really not much to really add. I just think the Patriots are going to stink.
Yeah, they did not prepare for the post Brady era because Belichick did not make a good transition out of it. They tried Mac Jones, Ken Newton, and didn't work.
Yeah, it's just nuts how bad they are. No.
I hope at least Joe Milton gets some snaps in the regular season as well.
I don't think he's going to, although that would be awesome. I just don't think that's going to happen. Would be fun. I've enjoyed watching him in preseason. But anyway, I'm going to join you. I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win the AFC East. So, and definitely Bills in the wild card picture. Jets, I just don't see.
Maybe that 7 seed, maybe like the slim 7 seed.
They could get that maybe. They could. So yeah. So okay, that is some NFL right there. Let's finish off real quick with I don't know if you had any baseball thing stuff you want to talk about, but
oh yeah, no. I mean, I know the NFC, the NL East is getting heated up because your Atlanta Braves is falling apart. The Phillies, I mean, they're okay. For me, the wild card fight is going to be really interesting in the NL. I mean, you have at least 5 teams in a 4-game span.
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be a fun fight for these playoff spots. Unfortunately, no Austin Riley. He got hurt for the Atlanta Braves. The season's over. I'm just going to say that much. I've had my fun this year with baseball, as you can see right behind me. So it'd be way too much for both of my baseball teams to be good. So there you go on that one.
And one team is literally is done. Any chances? The Chicago White Sox is officially eliminated in August from playoff contention.
Hey, they got to 30 wins.
Yeah.
Finally. Sell the team.
Yeah.
Oakland's only 14 and a half games back.
Yeah, Mike. It's so crazy that Oakland, the Angels, Rockies, Marlins are not technically eliminated, but the White Sox are.
Yeah. Pitiful.
All
right. Real quick, just finishing off some NASCAR real quick. Now, I want to circle back to last week. Remember Austin Dillon? He won at Richmond. And remember when I was talking about how he wrecked Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin?
Yeah.
To win that race. So he got penalized. So he still got to keep the race win. But NASCAR kicked him out of the playoffs. They said, okay, you won the race, but you don't get that automatic playoff spot. So now he has to win another race to get into the playoffs. And after today, he only has 2 more chances. I applaud NASCAR for this because, he's still officially the winner. He keeps the prize money and all that. And he keeps the trophy, but he doesn't get that playoff spot. And hopefully that'll prevent future drivers from doing stuff like this at the end of races. Like these are some of the supposed to be the best stock car drivers in the world. I want to see them actually race and not just wreck each other to win the race. They did race today in Michigan, and it was a weird Monday race because it rained yesterday in Michigan. And by the way, Michigan just the last 6 years, only one of those years was not affected by rain, which is insane. And that part of the problem with NASCAR right now is these races are starting at 3 p.m. And then the summer in America, it always rains at 3 p.m. They needed to move up some of these start times to noon. Give yourself more of the day to get these races in on Sunday, so we're not trying to watch these races at work on Monday. Just a little bit of a thing to me for NASCAR. We also had a flip today in the race. Corey LaJoie flipped over, which is really crazy at Michigan, of all places. Actually, there was a flip on Saturday in the Xfinity race, Ryan Sieg. NASCAR needs to go back to the board with safety and figure out why these cars are flipping over at a non-like Daytona or a Talladega track. That's not good. You don't want that happening. That could put drivers in a dangerous situation. But I think, to me, the big storyline is earlier at the end of last week, Kyle Larson, remember he tried to run Indianapolis and Charlotte in the same day. He just won the Knoxville Nationals for the third straight year in a row, the biggest dirt race in America. And he came out after and said, I am the best driver in the world, and Max Verstappen can't do what I do. So he called out the F1 champion by name. And then today, he, on his own volition, he didn't mean to do this, but he spun out and collected like Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell, Chris Buescher. And I just found that crazy that like he had the audacity to call out the F1 champion. And then himself caused a crash today. Would Max Verstappen cause that crash? I don't know. So, a bad look on his part. But, hey, Tyler Reddick won the race, and Tyler Reddick is hot. I think right now, if I had to pick who was going to be champion at the end of the season, I would pick Reddick. Reddick has finished on an average of like 3.2 over the past 7 races. Unreal. He's got a second one of the year. He is where you want to be in the playoffs, and they go to Daytona this Saturday, which is obviously always a chaotic race. But lots going on in the world of NASCAR recently, which is pretty crazy. But in any case, I think that's all the time we have here on this very, very, very late. We went later than Joe Biden, so congratulations to us in Chicago. But that's Gus Thomas in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm Nick Hill in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. You've been listening to Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports.